Continuing our discussion on the original Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 9 are those powers denied to Congress. Remember, the Constitution sets up limits on the United States government. So those powers denied to the Congress are that they could not interfere with the slave trade until 1808. That was part of the Slave Trade Compromise at the convention. Congress cannot suspend habeas corpus. Habeas corpus, the government must give you the reasons why they have arrested you. Congress is not allowed to suspend that. No bills of attainder, ex post facto laws. Bills of attainder said something as being illegal by law and setting up a trial without benefit of jury. That's not allowed. Ex post facto laws are deciding that something is illegal even after the fact that you or somebody else has committed it. Not allowed. No direct taxes. Change of the 16th Amendment, which gave the Congress the power to set up income taxes. Aren't you glad? As part of the Import-Export Compromise for the South, that Congress is not allowed to tax exports. No preference of ports of entry for different states. No drawdown without an audit from the government's treasury. And no titles of nobility are allowed by American citizens. Section 10 are those powers denied to the states. States are not allowed to make treaties. States cannot coin money, print paper money, or deny tender, legal tender, paper money as payment in debt. They also cannot pass bills of attainder or ex post facto laws, nor can they impair contracts between citizens of different states. States are not allowed to tax imports or exports, and states are not allowed to keep troops or ships in time of peace. Article 2, moving on to the executive branch. Section 1 sets up that the president is elected for 4 years along with the vice president. The president has to be 35 years of age and a natural born citizen and has to have been 14 years a resident of the United States. Sets up, and we'll go through this later, but sets up that the president is chosen by the Electoral College instead of by popular vote. Each state gets one electoral vote for each representative and senator, and the candidate for president has to win a majority of the Electoral College votes. The president can be succeeded if he or she dies in office by the vice president. Sets up the 25th Amendment for disability. Compensation for the president is set by Congress under the Constitution. Nowadays, the President of the United States is paid about $400,000. I can tell you that the last 4 presidents have refused their salaries. They didn't need them. There are perks involved, of course. Air Force One, the right to live in the White House, a 61-room mansion, and numerous other perks as President of the United States. Transportation besides Air Force One, you have helicopters and limousines, whatever you want. And of course, after you leave office is lifetime security and prestige as having been a president of the United States. President under the Constitution is required to take an oath to uphold the Constitution. There is nothing in the Constitution that says, "So help me God." That became tradition after George Washington. Duties of the President of the United States. He or she is Commander-in-Chief. They appoint cabinet members to advise them. They can grant reprieves and pardons. Reprieve to forgive a crime committed against the United States, a felony. They can pardon criminals. Make treaties with 2/3 of the Senate approving. The President of the United States appoints ambassadors and judges with the consent of the Senate by majority vote, and fill vacancies during recess by the Congress. Section 3 of Article 2, President can convene Congress when they are in recess, immediately get them back to D.C., or he or she can say, "You're not allowed to adjourn." President of the United States is charged to faithfully execute the laws passed by Congress. Section 4, the executive and judiciary officials can be impeached. and removed for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The House impeaches, the Senate sits in trial. The judicial branch, Article 3, kind of an afterthought. The original Supreme Court met in the basement of the Capitol building, didn't even have their own building. The founders felt like the judicial branch would be the weakest of the three branches. So Congress can create the Supreme Court, but other courts have been created, U.S. District Courts and appellate courts by Congress. Federal judges serve for life or until they wish to resign, once they are appointed and approved by the Senate. Jurisdiction of the federal courts, laws of Congress with judicial review. They sit in judgment of treaties with original jurisdiction. They will sit as a jury in the case that ambassadors have been accused of a crime. With appellate jurisdiction, they can take care of crimes in the high seas outside of state boundaries. When the U.S. is a party, they have original jurisdiction, controversy between states, between citizens of different states, and between state and foreign governments. They have appellate jurisdiction. Article 3, Section 3 defines treason as witnessed by two individuals to going against the laws and against the government of the United States and its military. It also has in Section 3, even though a person may be convicted as a traitor, you cannot, under corruption of blood, take away from their family or forfeit property. Article 4 is a full faith and credit clause that each state must accept the documents, contracts, and judicial proceedings of all other states. In Section 2, the privileges and immunities clauses for the different states and extradition. It sets up that the states must agree if an extradition of a felon in another state is asked by the governor of that state. The state where the felon is has to extradite that felon back to the state requesting. State territory is sacred under Section 3. No new state can be created without the permission of a particular state. No new state can be formed by combining two different states. Congress controls the territories, like Puerto Rico. Section 4, each state is guaranteed a Republican form of government, and Congress protects states from invasion and domestic violence. Article 5, the methods of amendment. Amendments are proposed by 2/3 vote in each chamber of Congress or by 2/3 of the state legislatures. Ratification is by 3/4 of the state legislatures or 3/4 of state constitutional conventions. Article 6 is the Supremacy Clause. The Constitution is supreme law of the land, and all other laws are subordinate to it. State officials are bound to support the Constitution by oath, and there can be no religious test for holding office in the United States. Ratification was set up by Article 7, that the Constitution could be approved by 9 of the 13 states. And of course, you had the argument for 2 years between the Federalists in support of the Constitution and the Anti-Federalists who were against it. And eventually, the Anti-Federalists won out by a guarantee that there would be a Bill of Rights added to the Constitution.